Josh Rabick with the Exposed Turnbuckle podcast here, doing a special video. It's a unique topic, had to take an extra little bit of time out. We spent some time talking about Dean Ambrose on the podcast, but we have asked the question on Twitter, so I figured I might as well do a video segment to kind of answer some more questions. Do I think Dean Ambrose leaving the WWE is a work? My answer is yes. But it's not a work in the sense of a wrestling conspiracist who thinks, oh, Vince and Dean have some type of agreement, wink, wink, nod, nod, handshake. We're going to tell everyone you're leaving, but really, it's just a way for you to get over. I think this is going to be used to get Dean Ambrose over, but more in the CM Punk from 2011 way. And no, I'm not comparing and saying, oh, yes, WWE doing this automatically gets him over like CM Punk. But I think just like CM Punk, negotiations will be revisited last second. WWE seeing somebody who they know has a big fan base. It stinks when you lose certain employees when they ask to be released. But with someone like Dean Ambrose, who you know you have a loyal fan base, you know you have always putting the Shield back together, doing that reunion that WWE falls in love with. So I think giving Dean Ambrose some type of push right towards the end and with a big, meaningful WrestleMania feud, like against someone obviously like Triple H, is a good negotiation tactic. I think WWE's also taken a little piece from their Daniel Bryan story. And I'm talking about the Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 30 build, where beforehand let's put it how it was, they thought of him kind of as a mid-card guy. Fans got a taste of him in the main event at SummerSlam. But then he was kind of getting the mid-card booking, and fans weren't going to accept that. And because fans saw that WWE wasn't necessarily burying Daniel Bryan, but in main event terms were kind of burying him. Now, Daniel Bryan had a lot more support than what Dean Ambrose has as of this exact moment. But with booking of having Nia Jax push him out of the ring, him eating a clean pin, and then also the way he was unceremoniously dumped out of the Royal Rumble, you're going to probably start picking up a little bit of steam. There's going to be fans who always like to clash with management, who are going to just automatically cheer Dean because they see that management has kind of given Dean Ambrose a little bit of the shaft, for a lack of a better word. And another thing that happens, so if somebody maybe comes from the other side of, well, maybe WWE is trying to get ahead of this. There's a lot of things that leak out on social media, and WWE one day just said, screw it. Let's get ahead of this. Let's announce that we are parting with Dean Ambrose. Well, we've had that happen maybe one other time in the last 20-some years where WWE confirms that somebody will leave the company and actually it be true and not be really worked into the program, because it hasn't been worked in the program yet. And the problem is that could be also a PR nightmare. We all know that WWE buries talent that isn't willing maybe to re-sign or says they're through with the company or has any type of heat. It's looked at as right now Dean Ambrose has heat. He's not coming back to the company. That's all well and fine, but there's perfectly blurred lines that benefit WWE where it's difficult to exactly say, oh, where'd everything go wrong? Where did the negotiations fall through? Really, WWE can just deny a lot of times and say, yeah, well, we talked about a contract and things didn't work out. And you really can't pinpoint the exact time that happened and match it up with, oh, this is where the superstar is getting buried. You don't have actual proof. And I understand common sense says, it was probably sometime right before the Royal Rumble based on that booking. But because WWE came out a couple days after the Rumble, and you think, that was kind of weird that Dean Ambrose, how he was booked in the Royal Rumble. I actually thought he was going to be the Iron Man of the Rumble and then maybe get dumped at, as the fifth to last man out. And then you have him lose clean to Seth. You make a point to have him lose clean to Seth. and then you have Nia Jax shove him out of the ring. It all really didn't make sense. And then all of a sudden, the Dean Ambrose information comes out pretty much, I think, Tuesday morning. And now all of a sudden it's all starting to click together. So the problem with that is if WWE, say, wanted to just have Nia Jax beat him straight up and there was no Triple H feud and Dean Ambrose got buried, we can pinpoint and say, yep, all the screenshots of WWE's post, it's through WWE's verified Twitter, Dean Ambrose leaving the company, and then all of a sudden he got even worse booking than what he got before. Now let's scratch that. Let's say that WWE does have the best intentions of booking Dean Ambrose maybe as an anti-hero. Shift that character, let him be a little more edgy, which we've been begging for and asking for, against Triple H, and have that go into WrestleMania and use that as a bargaining chip. And with that idea, with that thought, with that mindset, I love it. And I was somebody who was always in the minority that said Dean Ambrose, his money is to be made as a babyface. Now, people that have watched his old CZW stuff, which I'm one of them, our co-host Dylan Schaefer, he loves the Dragon Gate USA stuff of Jon Moxley, and was actually the first one of us that knew who he was, knew about him, probably even before the FCW days and everything. So that's a special skill right there in and of itself. But where I'm going is, we know his reputation as a heel. Some of the coolest baby faces, really since Stone Cold Steve Austin, you see how massive that anti-hero is. How much the anti-hero gets over because he's so much cooler than the drink your milk, take your vitamins, say your prayer type of heroes. The old Hulk Hogan style baby face even went out as Hulk Hogan was still a babyface. We saw the reactions to John Cena, and John Cena moves merchandise, and all that stuff is great. But as far as consistent crowd reaction, John Cena does not do a good job or had not done a great job as far as getting overall cheers, getting that male audience behind them. I think Dean Ambrose is that guy with edge that gives you that believability that he is crazy, that there is a real loose screw, that it's not something kooky like we've seen. And I think the kooky, the hokey stuff, people might say, oh yeah, well, guess what? It's WWE, it's wrestling. It's guys that have baby oil and dress up in their tights. It's hokey. It's going to be hokey. Yeah, but let's look at Finn Balor of late. Somebody who was considered pretty close to an equal as far as how he's been pushed to Dean Ambrose. He hasn't looked hokey lately. You had to build him up. You had to make him look believable versus Brock Lesnar. Seth Rollins wins the Royal Rumble. Can't make him look hokey. And that's the thing. Dean Ambrose probably has the most proven edge to him in the past as far as cutting promos. You saw it in the Shield. Yet for some reason, WWE wanted to make him the moral compass. And if things fall through, WWE has nobody else to blame but themselves. There has not been a more egregious booking of a star than the way they've booked Dean Ambrose of late. And some people might say, oh yeah, Dean Ambrose isn't a great wrestler because when I watched him as a babyface, he kind of did the lunatic lariat. He would jump on people, throw wild punches that kind of missed half the time. That's part of the character. Dean Ambrose can actually wrestle some really good technical matches. He can take some vicious, hardcore bumps. He can do a variety of things that I don't think every superstar has in their repertoire. And if everything falls through with Dean Ambrose, all you can look at is you tried to turn him into something he wasn't. And I've heard, well, sometimes you got to grab that brass ring. You got to go out there and you have to do something different. He has been booked so poorly, though. What do you expect him to do? When you've been booked that poorly, how is he supposed to grab the brass ring? So you want him to crumble up a script and just go off on his own little tangent? Well, with the way WWE's run right now, that's how you get heat on you. That's how you get jobbed the next week. And that's how eventually, if you do that a couple times, you get fired. It's not the same opportunities as some wrestlers have had in the Attitude Era. So if he's given something that's edgier and maybe he says, okay, this is good, I'm going to follow about 80% of this and then I'm going to put my own little spin on it, that would be a different story. How do you want him to take when he was putting a plant up inside the ring and made it part of his own set, and he talked about that, and he would go into every arena and pretty much he was given these kooky, just goofy promos where he's just asked to do kooky, nutty things that don't really fit an actual lunatic. They just, like, you want him to be more of a psychopath. And that's what I'd be looking for from Dean Ambrose. But having him be the moral compass, having him make fun of every city like everyone else does, the new jacket that he's been wearing that's looked god awful. Like it doesn't fit Dean Ambrose. Him having the vaccines, people making him sick and everything. Dean Ambrose is the guy that went through CZW and essentially had death matches. He's done some crazy stuff. Like, I've seen the Sawzall to the head. I've seen a lot of insane stuff he's done. And with the way he's been booked, he's the guy that's really fought from the bottom on up. He's the guy that's been treated like a sewer rat, but has achieved and accomplished more than anyone could have ever thought. So booking him like he's someone who thinks he's better than everyone, no, he needs to be booked like the guy that scratched and clawed for everything. And I think that's why he really is a babyface at the core. Because when you book him like the guy with an edge that's been through hell and back, it's not too far from Jonathan Good, the actual person, who's really had to fight for everything he's got. So, with everything said, I don't know where WWE's going with this, but my initial instinct is they are setting this up like a work to gauge crowd reaction and eventually use this as a negotiation chip for after WrestleMania, saying, listen, you have all these fans around here. Look at what you're getting paid. We're going to be able to justify paying you even more than what we offered you before because we made you a bigger star in the past couple months. Is this something that you are willing to walk away from? And if he can, then the burden is no longer on WWE's shoulders.